closing as well. We're actually recording already. Right, so there we go. Right, Frankie, do you want to jump in at this point? I think the only other thing I would say is just remember we're all addicts of equal status, freely helping one another. There's no hierarchy in here. Frankie's not here to do a sermon. We're all here to learn from each other, and we're all here to help each other get another day clean. So Frankie, over to you.
Thanks, Paul. That's just fucked the workshop up. I thought I was going to preach to everyone. No, I'm Frankie. I'm an addict. Thanks for coming on this journey, you guys. We're on the 5th month. I thought I'd make it a bit more serious today, just for fun. And as Paul says, what we do here for anyone who's new is when we ask people to share back, we ask you to keep to 2 minutes or so, or your experience, because what we're looking at with tonight's, is it chapter 7, Paul, isn't it? Yes, recovery and relapse. What we're looking at tonight is to understand why relapse occurs, and we want to get some experience from you guys around your understanding of relapse. So I spent 10 years attending meetings and relapsing. I think Paul beats my record, but it's not about who's relapsed the most. I went to 8 treatment centres, and I remember sharing in a meeting once and letting everyone know that I'd been to 8 treatment centres. And then this next guy who shared for me told me he'd been to 17 treatment centres, like it was a fucking competition. You know, I still felt better than him because I'd been I'd done all my TDs and been house leader in the other. He got kicked out of his. So yeah, it's not a competition. It's really, really, there's a quote in the basic text which says something like, I'm not verbatim with this one, says something like, this is a life or death issue. And if you hang around here long enough, what we see is we see people die. We see them fuck up and die. But the problem with addicts is it's a bit like, you know, them packets of cigarettes where on the side of the cigarettes, they show you some rotten, cancerous mouth that's been half eaten away as if it's going to put you off smoking. You know, with addicts, we're impervious to that nonsense. It's like, it's not about me, is it? It's the person on the cigarette packet. So we kind of have that thing. It doesn't matter how much we're threatened. What's he say? You know, it can't be, it's like the Terminator. It can't be negotiated with, can't be fucking reckoned with, you know, and it absolutely will not stop. With me, I came to meetings and I wanted to stop and I couldn't stop. I wanted to stop. I meet loads of people who come to meetings and they get the love of the fellowship and they get the support and they don't need anything else. They're able to do it. I'm the type of addict, and this is a bit like what this workshop's for, not special and different. It's just that Paul's like myself. We want to try and help and share our experience to people who have to do something. I've tried coming to meetings and I've tried having a tea commitment when it's face-to-face meetings, and I still picked up. Things still went south for me, still went wrong. Still ended up in Weston-super-Mare. Still fucking, yeah, still went bad, you know. What I had to learn to do, I had to learn to treat my step work and treat my service as if I was drowning. You know, like that kind of thing, like when you're fucking drowning, you do whatever you can to get out of the swimming pool. It's like, that's how I got to a place after 10 years. That's how important it was for me to do recovery, because I knew I was going to die, or I knew I was going to be someone who's not going to make it. No one give a shit in the meetings. Nobody cares. Nobody cares if we come in and do a big dramatic share and walk back out again and kill ourselves. No one cares. They miss us for a little while, but NA has no memory. That's the thing. That's the thing. And there's a very, very big difference to being in recovery and working a program. Now, I'm just going to leave that with you guys so you can think about this later on, because there's a really big difference here. Loads of people tell you they come out of treatment, they go to a meeting and they're in recovery. That is very different to working a program, because you work a program so you can deal with why we don't use. So they might sound a bit, to some people, if that's quite challenging and think I'm a bit of a fuckwit about that, let's see how we get on with this tonight. So Paul, do you want to do that bit of reading again, and we'll pick some up from it?
So this is chapter 7, recovery and relapse, and we're on page, for those of you who've got your books there, this particular version of the 6th edition basic text is line numbered just to help us with this reading. So we were going to start, Frankie, on line 44 and maybe read till 50 or 51 for the first bit. Yeah. Does somebody want to read that? Actually, that might help us kick it off. Joe, I see you there. Would you read line 44 to 51, please?
Yep. Hi, I'm Joe. I'm an addict.
Hey, Joe.
In our daily lives, we are subject to emotional and spiritual lapses, causing us to become defenseless against the physical relapse of drug use. Because addiction is an incurable disease, addicts are subject to relapse. We are never forced into relapse. We are given a choice. Relapse is never an accident. To what number, Paul? Sorry?
51, please.
Relapse is never an accident. Relapse is a sign that we have a reservation in our program. We begin to slight our program and leave loopholes in our daily lives. Unaware of the pitfalls ahead, we stumble blindly in the belief that we can make it on our own.
Lovely, thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Paul. Do you want to
stop sharing? I'll take it down for just now. Yeah.
Right, so I'll explain an emotional relapse. For me, one of my emotional relapses would be around when I was in a relationship and my girlfriend leaves me. Now, we know this isn't like one of these quiz things. We know and we learn that by doing step 1 that we're powerless over people. That's what we learn. We don't have power. We have a certain measure of power, but initially in itself, we're powerless over people. However, if I'm in a relationship and my girlfriend leaves me because I happen to be a problem, self-centered, a CUNT or something, you know, I can be prone to have an emotional relapse. Which, would anyone like to explain any of theirs? Mine would be, I'd be throwing my dolly out the pram, everyone I meet, be talking to them, I'll be telling them all about how she's bad, how she's this, how she's that. You know, it's not a nice subject. It's not about beating myself up. It's about how emotionally explosive I can be. Can we have 3 people to explain any emotional relapses that they've had?
Okay, can we have 3 hands up, maybe sharing back for a couple of minutes each, just talking about this idea of an emotional relapse. I think Frankie's called it a living example, just kind of to help bring us to life. Marla, I think you had your hand up first.
Hi, my name's Marla and I'm an addict, and I'm glad to share about this. And the reason for that is because I watched a very good friend of mine go through this, a friend with 25 years fall out and die. And the way that happened, he was one of those persons who was an icon that was like heading up and leading the program and the go-to person. And long story short, his son was an addict and then got in recovery and then failed in his recovery, and the son died. And then a year later, his wife died. And, you know, he was sitting in the meeting one day, and this was back when I had maybe like 2 years or something like that. And he looked around the meeting one day before the meeting started, and he was disgusted. And he says, you know what? He said, this is a quote, "I've got more time than all the people in this room added together." And that's when I knew he was on his way out. So, you know, I started calling him and trying to help him, you know, and stuff. But long story short, you know, he wound up picking up, and then he died a year or 2 later after that. He wasn't, he had so that broke my heart. That made me sad. So I've had experience with relapse myself, but that story, that I watched another person that I loved actually die from it is just, I thought that was worth retelling. So I'm vigilant with my program today. I go to meetings more days a week than I don't, because my own personal experience with relapse is when I get busy in life, and it took a year of not going to meetings for me to fall out. And it took me 11 years to get back. So I don't want to ever have happen to me what I saw happen to him. Pass.
Thank you, Marla. Thank you for sharing that. Jericho, someone from Jericho coming in. We got a living example of an emotional relapse.
Hi, I'm Darren, I'm an addict. Prior to me coming in here, just in November last year, me and my partner had a baby, and when the baby was born, obviously Dwayne's taking up all the attention, you know what I mean? All of my partner's attention was there on me. Do you know what I mean? Leading up to this though, for about 6 months before I actually picked up drugs, I was slacking off on meetings to spend time with my partner. She became my higher power sort of thing, So when the baby was born, and I'm not getting the attention, I'm not getting cuddles, kisses, we're not doing whatever, sex, things like that, kind of I've took it like a bit, like what's wrong, she must be up to something, I'm accusing her of stuff. No saying that, she's tired from just having a baby, there's a lot of more pressures. She's busy, but I'm making it all about me, do you know what I mean? Because the attention isn't on me. And ultimately it lasted a couple of weeks, and on Christmas Eve I picked up and died. So I've been back in here about 3.5 weeks or something now, do you know what I mean? And quite lucky to get back, because there was a few yets for me before my relapse there, and the yets became a reality, just when I was using then, it was probably worse than before I got clean in the first place. I had a couple of years clean time and then picked up on Christmas, and although I was only using for 4 months or something, that 4 months was probably worse than the 15 years before it in total, do you know what I mean? The depths that I went to. So I'm just glad to be back and grateful to be clean. Cheers.
Thanks, good to have you back. Anyone else? Frankie, I've got can I just share quickly on this, because it's such it's just like I've had an experience of this where I've been kind of 9 months clean, got the NA t-shirt, doing this literature study groups, but I've shifted my obsession from drugs onto, I love what Darren just said there about making a girl his higher power, and just, what led me to the relapse, I think, is this line: in our daily lives, we are subject to emotional and spiritual lapses. What did that look like for me in this relationship? It was control, resentment, checking her phone, who's hitting her up on Messenger, which NA member's trying to get with her. And it just consumed me. And I, no matter how much kind of meetings or conventions or things like that I was doing, I'd no defense, and then causing us to become defenseless. All that resentment, anger, control, self-righteousness, ego, it all left me defenseless against the physical relapse of drug use. So in the end, when I couldn't cope with the internal unmanageability, I went back to what I know best, which is using drugs. Louise, would you like to come in?
Paul, that was so powerful what you've just said, and it's so true. Wow, I've so needed this meeting. I broke my phone. I've been running around trying to get new headphones that have got a wee mic bit on it.
Louise, just to keep it, just because we're sharing on this line about kind of sort of emotional relapses, have you got experience of?
Well, I definitely emotionally relapsed. One of the reasons I relapsed again a couple of months ago was because my uncle caught COVID, and my mum had COVID, and then my sister-in-law caught COVID in middle, like a week before she was getting ready to give birth. My brother was freaking out in case he didn't kind of she was got to be there. And that's what put me on emotional relapse, because I was powerless. I couldn't do anything. I was unmanageable, if that makes sense.
It really does,
Within
Louise.
my head.
It really does. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that, Louise. Brilliant.
Thanks, Louise. Something I found really interesting because of not only working the program in different ways and being in the program for quite some time, but also before I worked in the business that I do these days, which is I work in the field of art, I did work in addiction. And one of the things which struck me was whether you're using or not, everyone's seen somebody who's drunk. I won't say pissed. If any of you Americans are on there, pissed means drunk. Yeah, it doesn't mean you're angry. And you see them walking down the street and they're screaming and shouting and fucking hollering and driving everyone mad. You know, the nutter on the bus who comes up on the bus and you're thinking, oh, don't sit next to me. That drunk person, it's loosened the screws at the back of the tongue and they're firing off. Well, we can do the same thing in recovery, but we don't have to be on drugs. We don't have to be loaded. We don't have to be drunk. We can do the same thing with that emotional relapse. And to keep this flowing, to move on to the next one, because this is going to be a challenging one for some, maybe, a spiritual relapse. Now, where it says on that, what Paul had, it was in our daily lives, excuse me, in our daily lives, we are subject to emotional and spiritual lapses. Now, for me, my definition of spirituality, and find your own one. If you look on Google, you'll see there's over 200 definitions of spirituality. My understanding of spirituality for me is honesty of self. That's my understanding of spirituality. A lot of people put it in a more religious frame. A lot of people put it in a higher power frame. But from my take on it, which is please get your own one and work your own program, of course, a spiritual relapse. With the spiritual relapse, what starts to happen is I start becoming dishonest to myself. I start saying, there's a quote in NA, which is, I start saying plausible but untruths. I start saying things that sound really as if they're honest and I believe in myself, but they're not fucking true. I start having these spiritual relapses in the sense where if you look at the spiritual principles, let's start with the three basics of honesty, open-mindedness and willingness, the how of the program. You know, I start stopping being honest, you know, I stop being open-minded. I believe I'm being open-minded. It's a bit like in the days when you say, oh yeah, I've got a Chinese friend. It's a bit like that, isn't it? It's like, you know, and willingness, you know, I'm really, really willing, but I'm not going to go to the meeting tonight because EastEnders is on or football's on or something. You know, it's like, if I'm working this program as if my life depends on it, these are quite important. So if anyone's had a slightly different spiritual relapse at all, please come on and share, because this is eclectic. It's for all of us to understand what works for us. Not everyone's like me. So let's have 3 hands up and 2 minutes each, please.
Brilliant. Danny, please share. Danny M. Danny M. Let me just hit unmute to see if you can unmute. There you, oh, sorry, me and Matt hit you at the same. It's all right, Matt, I'll leave it. No, did Danny just bounce out there? Thinks maybe, should we go Jericho Boys next?
Hi, I'm here, Paul.
Oh, you're
Sorry.
here, Danny. Sorry, Danny. Good. Well done again for 18 months.
Thank you very much. I'm Danny, I'm an addict. Firstly, I'd like to apologise for my camera being off. My webcam is not playing ball with me. Spiritual awakening, I definitely have an example of that quite recently. I was working my program to what I thought was the best of my ability, and
Danny, you've muted yourself. we're looking for a spiritual relapse.
There we go. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with that mute button. Yes, as I was saying, I've definitely experienced a spiritual relapse. For me, it came in the form of a bereavement, something that I had no control over. And before I knew it, I was lying to myself. My honesty went. My willingness to participate in the program was lapsing. And it had to be pointed out by my sponsor, but I realized that with that pain that I was unwilling to look at or acknowledge, I was actually behaving in the exact way that I was as I just came in the door. And that was with over a year clean and doing the steps and everything. I completely reverted and reset. And I was being honest. I was being unwilling. I wasn't being open-minded. I didn't think my higher power could take away this pain. And thankfully, by going through, we actually started the round 2 of steps. And I've kind of realized that there will be things that will make me question my spiritual connection in certain times, and it's just life is how I see it, because there's a lot of things that happen that aren't in our control. And bereavement was one of them. And it's definitely something that does come up for me, and it rocks me a bit, and it's quite difficult because it is out of our control. But that was my example of my spiritual relapse.
Lovely, Danny. Thank you so much for sharing. And then I think it's Jericho Boys, is it, Matt? Have I got that wrong? It's Andy. Sorry, beg your pardon, Andy.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm Andy. I'm an addict.
Hello.
So my spiritual lapse just happened last week. I didn't physically relapse, but until we did this little session right here, the idea of what was truth did not pop into my head. So last week I was texting and generalized a member who hosts the meetings, co-host, whatever, right? And I was corrected. And to my brain and my untruths, they tell me, oh, that person doesn't really like me. They don't, I'm not going to be welcome at these meetings anymore. And the truth is that person was just setting boundaries and giving me, hey, I don't want that generalizations. That's not my character. You know what I'm saying? But my brain will take it, and my spirit will say, oh, now you're not welcome at NNA. You're not welcome at these meetings. You've just lost your friend. And no, those aren't truths. The truth is I still have a lot to learn on how to interact with other people and how to accept other people and their boundaries. So thank you.
Thank you, Andy. It's always lovely seeing you here. We love you. And Jericho Boys, I think. Yeah, then Jericho Girls. Hi, Danny.
All right, I'm Danny. I'm an addict. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Frankie. Thanks to the other group members for this meeting. A spiritual lapse. I think I'm in one right about now. What happens to me when I'm in a spiritual lapse is I just become totally self-centered, wrapped up in self, and I start wanting to control situations. I start running on self-will. Any spiritual principles that I've tried to be practicing kind of go out the window. My attitude kind of changes, becomes a bit negative. My behaviors, my defects are out to play in it. It's an uncomfortable place to be, and I don't really have any peace of mind. Thank God it's only a spiritual lapse and nothing more, and I can do something about it. I just think, wow, I kind of read Recovery and Relapse today because I noticed I was off, and now the meeting's on it tonight. Need to put some action in to get myself out it and keep talking about it. Thanks, guys.
Danny, thank you for sharing, Danny, and we'll get Jericho Girls and then Scott.
Hi, Paul.
Hi,
I'm
Anne-Marie.
I'm an addict. Hiya.
Welcome.
I'll have a bash at this one. My last relapse, I would say, was spiritual. I came into Jericho last year. I left after 4 months. I went out, joined a group, done my 1990, got a sponsor, was never over Zoom, went for coffees, went for meals, met up with lasses to go shopping. And the longer I was staying at, the lower I felt. I didn't feel part of. And I was just listening to Frankie at the beginning of this wee bit there and saying, because you were being dishonest. I never thought I was being dishonest, maybe until I came back in here. And what I wasn't doing was sharing my thinking. Like, I hate shopping, I hate spending a fortune. And teas and coffees and meals to go. I missed the singing and the dancing and the close companionship I had with the lasses in here. That was my spiritual relapse. Thanks for letting me speak, Paul.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. And Scott, would you like to come in?
Hi, cheers, Paul. I'm an addict. My name's Scott, and really grateful to be in this meeting. And I'm just like, I'm going through it right now, and it's about dishonesty and like that. My spirituality, my recovery depends on honesty. So I've got a situation now where at my work in that, you know, I was working in another area, and I've been moved back to the team that I was supposed to join. And previously to where I was working just before, I was on a certain shift pattern, and you know, I've organised to do some other things on the nights that I've been. Well, the thing is, I've avoided asking my boss whether I'm working on these nights or not, because I'm worried that he's going to say aye, so that I can't go and do what I want to go and do. So I've avoided it. So I'm saying to myself now, well, as long as I turn up to my work and say I didn't know, because I just thought that I was going to be on this old shift pattern. I've got other stuff planned. I'm away to go and do that, and just put him in a position. And see, inside of me, it's crippling me, because I'm like, I need to go in the morning and just say, look, I'm going to have to work if he asks me what. But see, inside of me, I'm like, nah, you can't. Fuck this and fuck that. And because I want to go and do what I want to go and do. And it's like, I've been here a million times. Like, I've tried to manipulate my boss into giving me time off, but turned it back and been honest and been like, not Scott, you need to really get to the core of your dishonesty here. And because I got away with nothing in here. So I'm grateful to hear recovery and relapse, because the last thing I want to do is relapse. I want to be in recovery. So it's all right for me to think these things, but it's what is my action going to be that's going to follow it up, that's going to keep me clean, that's going to keep me spiritually well, because I will wreck my life in a second just with that kind of dishonesty. So thanks for letting me share, and for what everybody else has had to say, you've really pulled me back in the night. Cheers.
Thank you, Scott. Nikolai, stay there. If you had your hand up, I think Frankie's just we're just gonna move down a couple of sentences, I think.
Yep. I really like what both the Dannys said, you know. I like hearing other people's interpretation. It's good because, like, as the first Danny said, you know, was mentioning about a sponsor, the importance of having a recovery group, whether it's a home group, the importance of having a support network, the importance of having a sponsor, someone you trust, people from the outside, because we don't always see ourselves coming, do we? We don't see ourselves coming. It's like when we start to trust other members, they become our mirror. You know, when we start to listen to other members, we practice it in treatment. People give us feedback, don't we? Sometimes in the room, we're very reluctant to listen to someone when they start telling us about our behavior change, because there's a lot more to it when you're like in the playground, isn't it? Because there's so more dynamics involved there. You know, are they hitting on me? What are they up to? You know, but sometimes we need the fellowship to point out to us that things are going a bit rough. You know, Paul, can we move on to the next? For me, it's the next paragraph.
Yeah.
Which is, we are never forced into relapse.
Yeah, so I'll share it. Hang on, I'm just renaming you, Will. Bear with me. Is that okay? Right, so will I share the screen again? Let's see where we are. So we started on line 44. And where are we, Frankie?
We're on 46. We're never forced into relapse.
Yeah.
And if we can read down to line 50, please.
So if someone would like to come in and help us read that again, I think Joanne did read down to 51, but if we could read it again from...
Was it Rachel?
Rachel, yes, please, yeah. Rachel, come in and read from 46 to 50, please.
46 to 50. Okay. We are never forced into relapse. We are given a choice. Relapse is never an accident. Relapse is a sign that we have a reservation in our program. and we begin to slight our program and leave loopholes in our daily lives.
Thank you,
Thank
Rachel.
you. Thank you. Right. If we can have 3 hands up, for example, because what we're looking for is understandings of reservations. When I was sponsoring, but when I've been working in treatment, one of the main things that people present with is they present with, when my daughter gets married, I'm going to have a glass of champagne at her wedding, which would mean they don't understand what's wrong with them, because as we know, 1 is too many. Yeah, that's what we learn. You know, if we've got the disease of addiction, if we've got the allergy, if we've got obsession, compulsion, and all those things put together, we can't use. I once had someone who was 10 years clean who left the meeting, who met me one day and said they have a drink at weekends. And I said to them, fuck, you come to NA for 10 years and you're not an addict. And they said, no, I don't have a problem. I can have a little drink at weekends. But we learn in NA that we can't have a drink at weekends, because that's what starts off, you know, the roller coaster or the snowball, and we end up back in treatment or dead, or walking back into the meeting, you know, begging for help. So what the question is relapse is never an accident. Relapse is a sign that we have a reservation in our program. Would somebody like to share some of the reservations they've had? Should we have 4 people sharing reservations?
Sure. Rachel, could you share on this for a couple of minutes, please?
I'm Rachel, I'm an addict. Yeah, so I can relate to the drinking reservation. I used to do that, and of course it didn't take long until it spiraled. But another example for me is I feel like when I get enough time in my program, you know, enough time clean, you know, I can do something then, because, you know, obviously I'm clean now. Like I don't have that bad of a problem, you know, like I've been clean, so I can use just a little bit. And so like thinking that, you know, I can use one day has really got, you know, my mind messed up. So yeah, that's my example. Thanks.
Thank you, Rachel. Joe, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Jo, I'm an addict.
Hey, Joe.
Do you know, the first time I ever got clean back 8 years ago, and because I used to come to meetings and get a home group, but never picking up the other 2 suggestions. And weed was my reservation. You know, I used to, you know, I'd be abstinent for a wee while, and then I'd get with some friends and I'd be like, oh, weed's not a drug. You know, I can have a joint. But then it would set off that compulsion, you know, and it would lead to the harder stuff each time. And it's weed that took me out the door every single time in Narcotics Anonymous. So yeah, weed was my biggest reservation. Good news is I picked up all 4 suggestions this time. So yeah, that's my example.
Well done, Joan. Thanks for sharing. Gordon, would you like to share?
My name's Gordon, I'm an addict.
Gordon.
Sorry I joined the meeting a little bit late, but just to say, yeah, I really wanted to put my hand up there because I've literally come in a little bit late and straight in the door, and you know, I got 9 months in my home group, much like what Joe had said. You know, my reservation was 100% alcohol, and you know, I've wasted years of my life trying to fight that reservation, and it was a fight. It was, I mean, and it you know, you should have seen the state of me after it had won the fight. You know what I mean? It was just, you know, when I came in, it was, as far as I was concerned, it was all party drugs, and you know, I always saw champagne. It's the most cunning of them all. My reservation was, you know, it's a beautiful thing, a glass of champagne. You know what I mean? Well, you know, it was exactly what it said on the tin when I came into NA, is that alcohol is a drug, and I think the most cunning one after my experience with it. So that was my reservations, and it took me out for the best part of 2 years Yeah, I'm seeing now that I'm coming in and taking all the suggestions and enjoying them all. I'm going to finish this Zoom tonight and get started on my step 4, but it's I'll be really quick. It's my I don't know if it's reservations, but it relates to all that, is just how much I'm, very aware of where I shift it on to other things, and it is my food obsession just now, just how I can see everything else can very easily, without this program, can get out of control. My obsessions over other things that, if it's, I was able to, I must say, for me, and it's only for me, is once I'd got, past a couple of months, I felt, no desire to have any alcohol, but I'm still, I was still having thoughts of using other things. And it's amazing, it never goes away, that to me, that not the reservation, but the surrender, I'm now realizing it doesn't go. So I'm probably going to talk about it, but it's a good thing that it's not gone. Do you know what I mean?
Nice one. Yeah. Thanks very much, Gordon. Thanks for Frankie. Can I just ask something before we bring in Jericho, boys? Is a reservation waking up in the morning in reservation, right? So waking up, my first thought is normally a negative one, and I can't be bothered doing this. Can a reservation be not getting a home group, not going to a meeting today, not doing my step work? Is that a reservation?
Well, they're not reservations. They're understanding your commitment to the program. There's a big difference, isn't there, between understanding what's wrong with you and understanding see, the thing is, when you understand what's wrong with you, when you understand what sort of addiction you suffer from, because we have different sorts of addiction. Don't let the fellowship tell you different, because some people are gamblers, some people are sex addicts, some people just obsess about particular drugs. Some people, some people come in, they just party drugs, that's all they are. But the main thing around it is if you wake up in the morning and you're thinking about drugs, and you don't want to go to a home group, and you don't want to get a meeting, and you don't want to sponsor, we just heard Gordon say it, and we just heard Joe say it beforehand, you kind of need everything to do it, because when you understand you have the illness of addiction, whatever sort you have, reservations, which are really important to understand, they disappear, they don't matter anymore, because we don't have to rely on our memory. That's one of the most important things. You'll hear people say it all the time. They say, I'm not going to use because I remember what it was like. And the thing is, we all have a built-in forgetter. If we don't have a built-in forgetter, we're super memory man. I know I have a built-in forgetter. I even forget who I went out with. Step work got difficult. I don't know about you, Gordon, doing step 4. I forgot half the people. I burnt my friend's house down. I forgot I'd done it in 1982. So it's a done deal, as my sponsor says. When you understand what's wrong with you, reservations disappear, because it's like having a diagnosis, being a diabetic. Once you've been told you've got diabetes, you've got the choice. You either treat it or you don't. And it's the same with addiction. Once you understand, you don't start saying, I'll have a little cheeky line here, or I'll do, it's all right for me. I've never had a problem taking sleeping tablets or the odd joint. No, it's, once you understand you've got the illness, you have to work the steps, really. You have to go to meetings, you have to get the sponsor, and you have to speak to all the other idiots, because it's the only way we know how to deal with it. And we're 99% successful. Sorry, Paul, I went off on one then.
That's all right. That's all right. I was just thinking about the kind of addiction thing making us one of a kind. I don't know about that kind of.
Well, I know that we're all different. I know that we're all different. I can be really crude about this, because I know that if I eat the same food as my wife, sometimes she can rip let rip a lot more powerful than I can.
Okay.
So,
I don't know if that's okay. Jericho boys, please come in. Share on either farting or reservations. You can choose.
Right, Paul. My name's Paul. I'm an addict. It's the alcohol for me as well, and I'm still in denial about it. Coming in here, and I don't know what it was. I always defended it, saying that it wasn't an issue for me and things like that as well. And I know what Frankie's saying there as well. I don't know if it's just because it's a socially accepted part of it, or and it's the readings. Once I eventually addressed it and done a bit of writing on it and that, and it was always that it jumped out at me. Alcohol was a drug, so I know I can't take drugs because I know what they do to me. But once I realised alcohol was a problem and it is a drug, then I don't know. It just started off subtle. These subtle thoughts, I'll be able to do it when I go on holiday, what about when I get married, things like that. And then I felt as if I was battling with it. Once I shared my thinking, got to a better understanding with it, I don't know, I just kind of accepted it now. I'm not getting that fighting with myself inside of that. I'm getting anxiety around that, but aye, just accepting it was a drug and what's up with me. Aye, leave it there.
Nice one, Paul. Thank you for sharing. And Nikolai, thanks for waiting patiently.
Nikolai Addict. I'm not sure if this is a reservation or not, but more of a loophole. I think once I start choosing to believe that everyone in NA is full of shit, that's when I'm in trouble. I've been to enough meetings where I've heard pretty much all my reservations said in other people's stories, like if their child died. I've heard people, their children dying. I've heard the most terrible shit and they've still managed to make it clean. And for me, I could see where I would be sliding my program is when I start choosing to not believe in the program and what people are saying they've made it through. So it's like a conscious choice where I decide to be like, everyone's full of shit. You know, they didn't do it, so that means I'm not gonna. I just start really fucking with my head, but I don't know if that made any sense. That's all I got.
Thank you, Nikolai.
Paul, were we going to
Yes.
move on to another chapter? You had
We
another.
were going to do 66. There's 10 lines on page 80 if anyone's got their book there. Recovery and Relapse, chapter 7, page 80. And we were going to look at lines 66 to 76. So hang on, let me just move this up. 66, so when a resentment or any other emotional. So we've got that to 76. This is when we need the fellowship. Would anyone like to read that? Put up your hand if you... Andy, is that you reaching for the... Come and read this, Andy. Let's get Andy unmuted at Jericho.
What line was it again, Paul?
So if we start at
66.
66 to 76.
All right, my name's Andy, I'm an addict.
Yeah.
When resentment or any other emotional upheaval occurs, failure to practice the steps can result in relapse. Obsessive behaviour is a common denominator for addictive people. We have times when we try to fill ourselves up until we are satisfied, only to discover that there is no way to satisfy us. Part of our addictive pattern is that we can never get enough. Sometimes we forget and we think that if we can just get enough food or enough sex or enough money, we'll be satisfied and everything will be all right. Self-will still leads us to make decisions based on manipulation, ego, lust or false pride. We don't like to be wrong. Our egos tell us that we can do it on our own, but loneliness and paranoia quickly return. We find that we cannot really do it alone. When we try, things get worse. We need to be reminded of where we came from and that our disease will get progressively worse if we use. This is when we need the fellowship.
Thank you, Andy.
That's not good news, is it? Fucking hell. When a resentment or any other emotional upheaval occurs. So first off, let's have 3 people sharing resentments that they've managed to get over. And let's have 3 people sharing on an emotional upheaval. Is that okay? We do 3 and 3?
Yeah, is anybody got resentments? It'd be great to hear. I don't want to hear your step 4, but it'd be great to have some like when we bring it to life. And then I would love to hear the tools or the process of overcoming. I mean, I'm just thinking step 4 straight away, but Danny, you can tell us.
There we go. And Danny, I'm an addict again. Mine is very straightforward. The resentment of I will use when my ex meets somebody new.
Ooh.
That's a big one for me. One time I relapsed on it and the other time I didn't. So this time I was using the program and didn't, but that's anything that makes you feel less than for me. There's nothing like comparing yourself to another woman.
Thank you, Danny. Lovely. And Rachel, and then we'll go to Joe.
Hi, Rachel, addict. So I'm still kind of working through my resentment, but it's been kind of difficult because it's with my longtime boyfriend's mom, and we used to live with her, but now that we don't, it's a lot better. But I don't know, I just had to practice the serenity prayer and know that I can't control her. I can only control myself and how I react to their relationship. But I feel that, you know, she has her own mental problems, which I also had to remember. But, you know, my boyfriend also is in recovery. He has 6 years, and she just always brings up, well, I was there for you then. And I don't know, she just acts childish, and I feel like takes advantage of him, and he does everything for her. And it's just frustrating. So I try to, you know, get over it, because his dad died at a very young age, and he was the older brother and had to step up. So I know he's, you know, the man in the family or whatever, and had to be there for her. So I'm just trying to be understanding instead of resentful. And yeah, that's my example. Thanks.
Lovely, Rachel. Thank you for sharing with us. Appreciate that. And Joe.
Nice one, Paul. Cheers, man. Good to see you.
And you.
Resentments, Paul. I think you know a wee bit anyway, man, through coming on to the Zoom. But I had a major resentment with people in NA a few years, about 6 years ago. I ended up stabbing a boy and swinging his blood out this house that I'm staying in the new for NA, but it was alcohol related, obviously. And try to get back in, obviously coming to meetings and picking different resentments up with different people, no associates he has, and I would be dead angry. I'd come in and be in the meetings and I'd be spewing out full of anger, full of hatred, because I was stuck in a total obsession. My thoughts were obsession with the resentment, not with the boy. It was like his pals and NA, and I was wondering why kind of people were stepping back for me and things like that. And it was only really through contacting my sponsor and people who had kind of made relationships up with the years prior to picking up alcohol. Do you know what I mean? So for myself, it was a lot of hard work. No, I had to kind of fucking hand it over. My sponsor used to keep saying, just hand it over before you get into a meeting. Pray, do the serenity prayer. If you need to walk out, no, come out, phone me, and then go back in. You know, stuff like that. So it was, for me, it was quite difficult. No, and I've had lots of resentments through my life, i.e. with parents being in homes and all that kind of stuff, but it didn't hold the power on me as much as it did with being in the room for Narcotics Anonymous, because I think I associated everybody the same. Do you know, I felt it hostile, you know, I felt they were talking about me. I had the conditioning in that I wanted to act out, but luckily I never, because I phoned my sponsor and I fucking prayed and I talked to my sponsor quite a lot, you know. So resentments are hard, they're hard to deal with, man. But it is what it is in that kind of front. Go to face that stuff in a mature manner, ain't you? And no act out and take the suggestions on. So I'll just leave it there, Paul. Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks.
That was great, because I don't know if you guys picked up on that. Joe actually shared 6 different ways of how to deal with a resentment, you know, because that's what we do. We learn off each other. It's that thing of, you guys have heard this before. I'm going to say it again because no one said it. It's a standard in meetings. A resentment is like drinking poison and hoping Boris Johnson's going to die. You know, it's that. You know, it's quite simple. It's very, very simple. Resentments, if you have them for long enough, we get stress-related illnesses. We get all different things come up, you know, not only hypertension and blood pressure and everything else. You're killing yourself by having a fucking resentment, you know, never mind the other person that is not always aware of it. So can we do the next one now, Paul? Would you recite that, please?
Can I just share something quickly? Because I just reached for because I had such a profound experience with the step working guide, because I did my step 4 through that. And I was like, Joe, I was exactly like you, Joe. I was like, the resentments were killing me. You know, I was like plotting to kill people. You know, I was just reliving those feelings over and over. I'm going to do that. And could not see in that self-pity and denial, could not see my part of it. And when I turned to the resentment questions in the steps working guide, and there was like, how has my behavior contributed to my resentments? Am I afraid of looking at my part in the situations that cause my resentments? How has my inability or unwillingness to experience certain feelings led me to develop resentment? See, when I started answering those questions, it was impossible for me to be in denial anymore. And it was just like, it just miraculously lifted. And I almost just started laughing at myself. You know, it was like, you fucking idiot, you know, it's all you, Paul, it's you, you know. Anyway, I just wanted to share that because that was a method that kind of really, I went from being that crazy resentful guy to being free of them. Now I pick up new ones on a daily basis, but that's another thing. Sorry, right, so the next question was, sorry for going off on step 4 tangent there, but it was kind of related, what was the next question, Frankie?
And
it was an emotional
upheaval occurs.
Emotional upheaval. So hang on, let me just see the line. Yeah, when a resentment or any other emotional upheaval occurs, failure to practice the steps can result in a relapse. I kind of shared something like that earlier on. Does anybody have other examples of a resentment or emotional upheaval that has led to a relapse, physical or spiritual or emotional? Any experience around that? Everyone's so well. Alison, is that you reaching for the raised hand? I knew it was. Let's unmute Alison, Matt.
Hiya, I'm Alison and I'm an addict.
Hey, Alison.
Good to see you, Alison.
Nice to be here. Thank you so much. Man, this is great. So, you know, emotional upheaval. You know, I had a kid. It was such an emotional experience. It was something I had never experienced in addiction. It's something I had never experienced clean, and it changed everything about who I was and how I showed up in recovery. And it's a lot of this, you know, comes in the lines before about things that happen, and we start to put our lives, or I started to put my life, I started to try and fit recovery into my life rather than fitting my life into recovery, rather than figuring out how to continue to work the program every day. And so a failure to practice the steps, a failure to practice the program of Narcotics Anonymous as a whole in my life every day resulted in a complete spiritual relapse. Oh my God, indeed, my love. You know, a complete spiritual relapse. And although it didn't manifest in a physical relapse, as many of you may know my story, it got to the point where it was almost indistinguishable. The only thing that was missing from my behavior was the drugs. Everything else was the same. I was using character defects and character traits that had long been on my 6-step list as my spiritual principles, as my daily application of my program. And so, you know, when anything would come up, I would apply denial, I would apply hatred, I would apply, you know, blame, punishment, righteousness, justifiable rage, some of my most active ones. And it just came from something that was just an emotional shift, just this upheaval that for some people is an incredible thing and it's amazing and it propels them forward and enriches them. And for me, it just knocked me off balance. And instead of doubling down into my recovery, I backed off, and it was not the choice to further my my spiritual growth. It stopped it completely, and I became part of this chapter. Up until that point, I didn't know that I belonged in this chapter, and then after having that experience and reading it, I was like, oh no, they already knew. I didn't know. I wish I'd read this chapter more before. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Alison. Brilliant. Okay, so we have Joe, then Jericho, and then Stefan.
Hi, I'm Joe. I'm an addict.
Hi, Joe.
I don't know if this applies, right? In my mind, this is a spiritual lapse, emotional upheaval, and a resentment all in one. So I'm really bad with the negative self-talk. And that's because I was brought up with an abusive stepdad. No, in the sense that he was physically abusive or sexually abusive. He was really mentally abusive, and my whole life he told me, I was no good and all that negative stuff. So sometimes when I'm trying to love myself, and the kindest thing I can do for myself is work this program, I can go into a place where I'm back with that negative self-talk, and that really fucks me up, and I can stop practicing principles in my daily life. So I don't know if that applies. I think it's a bit of everything all rolled into one. So yeah.
Thank you, Joe, for sharing. And Jericho.
Hi, my name is Konrad. I'm addict.
Konrad, hi, welcome.
I'm not too sure if it's a good example, but I had some resentments on a Friday to people from this house, and it's like spiritual relapse. And I was praying the night time, will God just take away these resentments. And next day morning, when I was waking up and still I had the resentment, I was thinking, fuck the higher power. He's never listened to me. What's the point is praying if he's never helped me? And the best today I had evidence. The best what I can do, just share about this with other people, like on the group, especially with this person for who I had resentments. And it's amazing. After the group, all my resentment is like gone. So this program is really working. Just we need to apply this. Thank you for letting me share.
Lovely to hear you. And Stefan?
I am Stefan. I'm an addict.
Hello.
Thank you for. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Stefan. Hello.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm Stefan. I'm an addict, and thank you for all the people that shared, and thank you, Frankie, for telling us that drinking poison, hoping somebody else will die, is exactly the phenomenon, and the solution is. I told this before in this meeting, but in my 4th step, I had to write 115 resentment people for 115 people I was making resentment for, and I didn't relapse because I did write all those things, and my experience of resentment is it was in the center of my using. Okay. Obviously, 150 people is the center, and after 5 people, after answering the questions for 5 people, it was always the same thing for me, and it's how do you say that? It's unrealistic expectations with people, and being a victim of those people. I was a victim of those people because I had unrealistic expectations with them. They needed to respect me more, understand me, the time to talk to me, give me what I want when I want. And of course, it never happened. So I was making resentment. So I was my own factory of a reason to relapse, because I was a victim. And the solution was really the 4th step, and writing the 4 questions for each one of them. And I discovered that I had a unrealistic expectation at the end with my sponsor, and it saved me. Because I had the choice after the 4th step. I had the choice to accept that I had a part in that resentment. That my part in this is that I was crazy, and now it's much better. It's really much better. And after writing all those resentments, I don't want anybody to be in my next 4th step or in my next 8th step. So I'm watching closely who I'm fighting with, because I'm scared of writing this again, and I'm scared of relapsing, because when I have resentment, I come into a victim status, and when I'm into a victim status, I use. That's what I was using for, because I was a fucking victim. I'm sorry for fucking. I was just a tiny victim with nothing else in his life. And it's not true. It's really not true. So 4th step is really a big solution for us not to relapse. Although it's difficult, it takes you out of this smog, you know. It's my experience. It took me out. So thank you very much for the service, and sorry for the same story over again.
Oh, no. Pertinent, Stefan. Timely and pertinent. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you
and
so
then
much.
Matt, if you come in, and then Frankie's going to come back in after you.
No worries, thanks, Paul. Yeah, so following on from Stefan, yeah, emotional upheaval in step 4. That's where I'm at right now, you know, looking at resentments. And what I've figured out in the last, 2 hours is that I'm taking inventory of resentments for the things now, right now, what's happening in my life right now. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I don't want to look. I don't want to go back and face the big resentments. So I trick myself that I'm working my program, because I'm writing down the resentments that's happening today, or the resentments that happened yesterday, or I'll just think of something like somebody cutting me up in the car. Oh, well, there's a resentment. It's not really working my program though, is it? Because I'm not being open, I'm not being willing, but I trick myself into believing that I am. So it's great to hear people come in and say that when you do apply it the way that it's meant to be applied, you get some relief from that. So thanks, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you.
I was going to say that in my early days as well, Matt, I wrote the resentments down and I kept the record of them. I didn't necessarily go through the process of see what my part was, but I wrote the resentments down, and I realized that at the end of the day, I had about 50 resentments. And if you take on board that the resentment is damaging you, you know, we practice the program. It's not an exam. We don't pass the test and get the program. We don't get the badge. We might leave with a certificate if we go to treatment, but you know, we practice the program for our daily life. One of the things I was going to say to Stefan is I've learned how to speak victimese as well. You know, we learn victimese, don't we? It's like, it's not my fault. I didn't do it. You know, it's a good practice, isn't it? You know, kind of speak. But to go back to the beginning, because we've got, what, 10 minutes left, Paul? Is that right?
10 minutes, yeah.
To go back to the beginning from where we started, I like to do a loop with these workshops. In the mothership, they call people dry drunks when they don't work a program, because their behavior is like somebody who's drinking. We are NA, we've evolved. We have this saying, which is untreated addiction. We see people who come in the rooms, you'll see them yourself, who come in the rooms and tell you they're 8 years clean. and they behave like a newcomer, where they're all erratic all over the place and very animated in how they talk and how they move around, because you relax. Well, I work in a program, we learn to relax. And that's the difference. Just to tag on to that, that's the difference between being in recovery and working the program. When you work in the program, you reflect daily on what you do. That's why we have the books that we read. That's why we do the meditation. That's, you know, that's why we communicate with each other, because if we don't connect and reflect on each other, we don't pay attention to what we're doing. We just got to try not to take everyone else's inventory, no matter how sick they may be. Paul, over to you.
Right, have we got for a couple more? So I like the premise there of kind of going full circle. So we've got what, 10 minutes, and we need to keep a few minutes for the cards and stuff. What I'd really love to kind of finish on is just a kind of, okay, I'm thinking aloud here. It'd be great to kind of summarize and maybe find from a few people, few hands up, what maybe the learnings were here tonight. Did this expose anything for anyone here tonight? Is anyone thinking about the power of resentments differently from listening to other members? You know, if we're all each other's ultimate weapon. So what's the takeaway from tonight? That's what I'd love to hear. Has anyone got any thoughts? Has anyone? Okay, Gordon, give us a couple minutes each, guys.
Okay. Hi. So yeah, for me, because I'm just literally, I decided before I came on this Zoom, it's just been like a blessing just to come on and listen to other people talk about that. So for me, funny enough, I was on the phone to my mate for an hour and 40 minutes driving home, saying, right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get started with this list. And for me, it's you know, I see the step forward, instead of sort of getting myself all worked up about these resentments and the list of people, and I'm just going to start with the list and do a column of the people I'm going to on my resentment list. You know, hearing basically, what everybody else is saying is just you're cleansing yourself of, you know what I mean? It's I'm just sitting wallowing at the moment in all that resentment. I'm just surrounded by it, and if I delay this any longer, it's just you know, it is like, as my friend explained it to me, and it just clicked to me how much it makes sense for what everybody else has said. It's like I'm sitting in my own dirty bathwater, you know, and it's a cleansing process. And you know, I don't want to sit with these resentments anymore. I want them gone. So yeah, I just need to get on with it now. So that's it.
Amazing, lovely to hear. Okay, and I think Andy's up next. Hi, Andy.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Andy, I'm an addict. Yeah, I mean, I needed this meeting today, so thank you to everyone to service. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Particularly picked up on what Frankie just said about, you know, being a dry drunk. I feel that's kind of, you know, I'm 14 months clean. I only went to 5 treatment centres. Sorry, Frankie, not quite up there, not a competition. And I'm trying to move on with life. And I guess what I've learned from this meeting is, and I have heard from my partner, is I'm not practicing my program. I'm building up new resentments now, and I'm not dealing with them. You know, I'm not at step 10. I'm only on step 6. I started doing some step work again yesterday. I feel better already. Step 6 isn't a great place to be stuck in, but I just wanted to say thank you. And just, I know I have to work this, and I don't want to be a dry drunk, and I don't want to pick up, and I feel like I'm close. But I'm here, and I feel like I'm home. So thank you very much, guys.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that, Andy. And stay on at the end of the meeting if you want to connect and swap numbers and get added to our WhatsApp group for more of these meetings. Marla.
Yeah, I was reminded here today who I am, and I need to be reminded who I am, because otherwise I forget. And one of the phrases that I heard in this meeting was that we have a quick forgetter, and I've got a quick forgetter. And if I quit being reminded who I am, then I think I'm fine when I'm not fine, and because I'm not practicing a program. So I was not only reminded of that here today, but I was taught that we have to be reminded. So to avoid that quick forgetter thing. Thanks, pass.
Thank you, Marla. Marla, you just celebrated 10 years as well, right? 10 years? Did I imagine that, or did I see you picking up 10 years the other day? There you go.
I did. I had 10 years Sunday a week ago. Thank you.
Yes, amazing. Congratulations. And this
Thank
stuff
you.
works. Lovely. Thank you, Marla. Jericho boys, Matt will just unmute you.
Hi, so it's Conrad again.
Hey,
I'm
Conrad.
I just want to say that I'm really enjoy this meeting, and I learn definitely one things. I can get one thing I can learn. I was thinking that relapse is only with drugs, but now I can learn that is a lots of other kind of relapse, like emotional and spiritual. I was never thinking like this, and this could be first step actually to relapse with drugs. So thank you for the message. I'm newcomer, so thank you for this, and thank you for letting me share.
Bloody hell, Conrad's just like summed up everything there perfectly for me. Frankie, over to thank you, Conrad. Amazing. Frankie, final thoughts before we get into the last readings?
No, just thanking everyone for the meeting, and this has been a more concise meeting, and thanks for keeping it all together, and thanks for keeping the feedback to the topics and not wandering away, because it helps. There's a lot of knowledge here. There's a lot to learn from each other, and I may have I'm on my countdown. I don't know if anyone else has got this. I'm just going to put this out there. Every time I have a clean time birthday come up, mine's in 15 days and I'll be 19 years. But what happens for me, I can virtually guarantee it, what happens for me as it gets closer to my clean time birthday, I don't know if it's excitement, I don't know what it is. I'll start thinking, fuck NA, fuck you lot, I don't need this. What's the point? I'm not coming anymore. And I'll get depressed. I don't know if it's the measure of my own reality, but that's what happens for me. And I just wanted to say that in case anybody else gets that stuff, because it happens every clean time. When it gets to the actual day, I want to run around going, hello, birds, hello, bees, telling everyone. And it's a bit like that old thing my sponsor used to say. You go round and say to your mum, you go, Mum, I'm 19 years clean. And she says, yeah, so's the cat. It's like same old thing. And no one gives a shit if you're clean. They only care about how you behave. So, yeah, that's my thoughts. I put it out there. Just thank you for everyone being here and having a go today. Thank you.
Brilliant, Frankie. And can I, on behalf of us all, thank you as well for giving, coming and sharing with us and your experience of doing these workshops over years and years. And it's just such a phenomenal platform for just.
And next one, Paul, is at the end of the month.
Yeah, so we're going to go into announcements right now. So that's the end of our workshop, so we'll just go into a few more announcements. Are you talking about the live one, the Western one?
What's first? We've got two, haven't we?
It's the Western
Aberdeen,
one.
is it, or is it Western?
Yeah, but I don't think we're doing a basic text workshop at Aberdeen per se.
No.
Well,
Okay.
you're doing one of your own kind of speaker things.
Okay.
Yeah, but okay, so let's get into the quick announcements. So we have a WhatsApp group for anyone that's not on it. It's a fantastic tool. Only GSRs can post on it, meaning that we get one meeting link a day. So if you're not on the WhatsApp group and you want added, as I say, it just keeps you plugged into the meetings that are coming from the East Coast Scotland. This thing that we were doing earlier on, Matt, have you got a flyer there? This line by line basic text thing, there's a new meeting on a Sunday at 10 a.m. We are the basic text. And what we do is we study the book line by line, number by number, like we were doing tonight. The idea that is, if this is a spiritual document, if every line is group conscience, and if it changes every time we read it and we get something new, let's get into it word by word, line by line. And what we do is it's a different format from tonight, but we just read a couple of paragraphs at the beginning, and then we just open the floor and we share back for 4 minutes on it. And it's really great. So if anybody wants any more information on that one, this meeting meets on a Monday at this time every week. Once a month is the basic text workshop like we've had tonight, but we also meet on a Wednesday and a Friday at 12:15. If anybody wants to come along to a lunchtime meeting, please do. Okay.
And this is the one,
yeah,
which I want to mention. This is in Weston-super-Mare. It's the West Country Area Convention. That's the next workshop we're doing. So if any of you guys can borrow the helicopter for the weekend or break out of treatment, come along and see Paul and myself. This is the flyer they have for the convention. It's at the end of the pier. It's lovely.
So this is going to be, but is this going to be, this is going to be on Zoom, isn't it?
It's going to be on Zoom, and we're going to be in the room.
Yeah. So it'll be the same as the same as what we did at London. The link that we posted tonight in the chat has the link for the YouTube link for the basic text workshop that we did in London, and West Country have asked us to go there at the end of the month and do it. So we will put it on. We will put it on Zoom. That looks like a lovely destination for me and Frankie.
There's even donkeys on the beach.
It's going to be fun. Right. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thanks for bearing with us. And we've got a couple of readings, which I think, Matt, you can just share. Joe, would you please read We Do Recover?
Definitely. Cheers, Paul. My name's Joe. I'm an addict. Cheers for the workshop tonight, man. Really enjoyed that. We do recover. When at the end of the road, we find that we can no longer function as a human being, either with or without drugs. Both face this same dilemma. What is there left to do? There seems to be this alternative: either going the best we can to the bitter end, jails, institutions, or death, or find a new way to live. In years gone by, very few addicts ever had this choice. Those who are addicted today are more fortunate. For the first time in man's entire history, a simple way has been proving itself in the life of many addicts. It's available to us all. This is a simple, spiritual, not religious program known as Narcotics Anonymous. Cheers, Paul.
Amazing, Joe. Great to see you tonight. And as usual, we got Jericho Boys in the house to do their official position. Who's leading us off tonight?
All right, Paul, my name's Andy, I'm an addict.
Yeah.
Just for today, tell yourself.
Just for today!
My thoughts will run my recovery, living and enjoying life without the use of drugs.
Just for today!
I will have faith in someone in NA who believes in me and wants to help me in my recovery.
Just for today!
I will have a programme, I will try to follow it to the best of my ability.
Just for today!
Through NA, I will try to get a better perspective on my life.
Just for today!
I will be unafraid. My thoughts will go on my new associations, people who are not using and who have found a new way of life. So long as I follow that way,
nothing. Thank you, lads. And Andy did it without laughing tonight and giggling, which was great. I was just waiting for you to start giggling. Okay, 12th tradition. Who you see here, what you hear here, when you leave here, please let it stay here. And let me see, hang on. Margaret, we haven't heard from you tonight. Margaret, would you kick us off with the Serenity prayer, please? Everyone should be able to unmute now and join in.
Yes, thanks, Paul. I'm Margaret, I'm an addict.
Margaret.
Let's take a moment to remember the suffering addict. And using whatever words you understand, God.
God.
Things
I cannot change. Courage to change the things I can. And the wisdom to move
coming back.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, Paul. Cheers, Frankie.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.